I wasn't looking for a boyfriend. I was working, I was goal-oriented, I was a dreamer. I have always been a dreamer. I've always wanted everything in life to be perfect. So anyway, fast forward.
Just wanted to talk about this because, you know, I did share with you the house that I grew up in, and I know that some people will have the impression, rich girl, spoiled little rich girl, and because of the way I speak and all that kind of stuff. And I just want to tell you right now, I am not rich, far from it. And I didn't grow up rich or wealthy. It just so happens that my dad had a decent job and my parents saved up so that we could move into a house and acquire some kind of lifestyle where I went to a private school and we had a comfortable life for many, many years. That doesn't mean that we were free of any money problems. That doesn't mean that I was spoiled. That doesn't mean that I was wealthy. I lived a middle-class life for most of my life, but I'm definitely not rich. I would like to acquire wealth, and I will one day, hopefully. But I don't want anyone having the impression that I'm this kind of rich girl, because that was the opinion of me when I was growing up in the latter part of my childhood, because of people saw the house that I lived in. You know, they would say things like, oh, that girl lives in a palace. You know, that was the rumor at school, in high school, or whatever you want to call it, sixth form, whatever you call it. This girl lives in a palace. She's rich. She's an only child. She's spoilt. I think the Watts case, and I'm just being revealing to you because I don't think that I don't really share much about myself, because I believe that you should have an online life and a private life. So, you know, you don't know my full name. You don't know my date of birth. You don't know those things. I don't share those things online. And for people who want to share those things online, that's up to them. But I don't do that. But I think the point I'm trying to make, I think with the Watts case and what we learned about the Watts case over the years is that big house, nice cars doesn't necessarily mean that people are rich. You know, there's this idea as well, you know, that I know of. There's this ideology, or there's this saying, house rich, cash poor. You know, I grew up and when I first moved to this country with my parents, we lived in a shared house with my aunts and uncles in a small room. Then that we lived in a few small rental properties around London. And then we moved to Buckinghamshire, where my parents were able to buy a small semi-detached 3-bedroom house. And even then people were saying that we were rich, which I don't understand at all. Before I moved to the house that I've showed you, you know, I went on holiday. I went to America. I went to Canada. I traveled as a child. I went to Europe. I went to Spain. My parents paid for me and my friend to go to Egypt once, where we stayed in 5-star hotels. We stayed in the same hotel that Princess Diana stayed in. We had certain privileges, but we were never rich and we never had unlimited amounts of money. And like I said, the Watts case really shows and proves that people can appear to have everything and appear to live in a nice house and appear to have money. But, you know, we know that the Watts marriage was very deceiving on you know, the house was a facade. You know, the fact of the matter is that they weren't wealthy people. Chris and Shanann, they weren't wealthy and were living beyond their means. I think the Watts case told us that. So don't look at the big house and think, oh, somebody is rich, because it doesn't always work like that.
I moved to Colorado after meeting a friend of mine in North Carolina. After I nannied for her children, we moved out here after visiting, fell in love with the area. It's gorgeous in Colorado, minus today it's raining, but I still feel good. So, yeah, so we moved to Colorado. We created a life for ourselves out here. Chris found an amazing job that fully takes care of him. Anything he needs, he's there. They appreciate, they respect him, which is huge for any job that you have. And we love it here. We've made such an amazing group of friends that we call family, friends that are closer to us than some family, friends who are there for us better than some family. Truly, truly grateful for everything that has happened since my diagnosis. And I believe things happen for a reason. Things are placed in our life to bring us to the next stage of our life, good and bad. We just have to take all of it with us. And so when Chris and I got married, we dedicated our wedding.
So the ironic thing is that I was actually talking to Dave not too long ago, just the other day. And he told me he used to live in a place that I used to live. He used to live in a town that I used to live in before moving to this house. Me and Dave lived in the same place. Now, Dave is considerably older than me, so I don't know if I was even born when he lived there, or if I was probably, or I could have been a child when he was living there, a young child. So, maybe I wasn't even born when he was living there. But the fact is, Dave and I have lived in the same town. That just, when he told me that he lived in this place, which isn't far from where we actually moved to, this house, I couldn't believe it, because I'm very familiar with the place that he lived. I lived there for years before we moved here. So I cannot believe that me and Seeking the Truth with Dave actually lived in the same town. That just boggles my mind. That's just too coincidental. Because I think Dave is from Scotland originally, or at least his parents are, or one parent is. And, I had some Scottish friends growing up. And Scottish people, I found, are the most patriotic people in the world. Or at least amongst all the British, they are the most patriotic. From Scotland. Scotland. So, let me not get off track. I've watched quite a few videos of Shanann, maybe not as much as other people have, and I have been very respectful to her. And I will always be. That's my belief, to be respectful to people. I do believe that, she was definitely no saint. She was probably difficult to live with at times. But I believe in critiquing and not the reverse of that, not the extreme of that. I believe that you can critique, but not go overboard, particularly when you consider the circumstances. And one of the things that I notice about Shanann is her pursuit of kind of perfection and the way things appear on the surface. I see that in Frankie as well. And by the way, I think Frankie and Shanann are two beautiful children, and their parents were lucky to have them. I really do. I've seen pictures of Shanann and Frankie, and just two gorgeous people. I mean, Frank and Sandra had two gorgeous kids. And, there's a picture of Shanann and Frankie. I don't want to get emotional. And they just look so gorgeous together. Gorgeous girl, gorgeous sister, gorgeous brother. And, this was not supposed to happen. Shanann wanted everything to appear perfect and look perfect. And I think there was an element of fakery there. Everything is fine. There are no issues. And I see that in Frankie when it comes to the AD stuff. Everything is going swimmingly. There's no problems. There's no issues. Everything is going fine. Good news is coming soon. So maybe it's something that the both siblings have, that the appearance of perfection is more important than the actual, reality. And I think that Shanann and Chris, but particularly Shanann, through Shanann, I think she was probably the instigator. I think she was living beyond her means and living beyond the reality, because I think she was trying to create the American dream. And some people will say, well, this is where she faltered. This is where she stumbled. Everything was kind of like on display, on show. Everything had to look a certain way, be a certain way. She had, however, bear this in mind, talked about her past struggles and past issues, health issues and stuff like that, and talked about overcoming those things. And I think that there was an element of, she thought she'd met the knight what is it, the knight in shining armor that was going to rescue her and be this guy, be this wonderful father, wonderful husband, wonderful provider. But I think, when I think about it now, Chris really could not provide the lifestyle that she wanted. He could not provide the paycheck that she wanted, that she needed, that, like I said, the house, the big house, the perfect looking home, everything looking perfect, that was as much of a facade as anything. It was really a facade. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that is the lead up to why everything happened, apart from the NK situation. I think Chris could not anymore provide the life that she wanted, the bank, the cash that she needed, the income, he could not provide it. He could not give Shanann ultimately the perfect life that she wanted. It was very much a facade, that, this pristine looking house. If there's one thing I would change about that house, I do like the Watts house, and I would definitely live there. The only thing I don't like about that house is the fact that it doesn't have an enclosed garden. A pool would also be nice, an enclosed garden and a pool, and I'd definitely live there. That's the only thing. Everything else about the house is lovely. And, Chris Watts could not afford that. He couldn't afford it. And I think ultimately her pursuit of perfection is part of what led to what happened, because she was in constant pursuit of perfection, in constant pursuit of, the facade that she was living in. And it was really not reality.